honestly, what sends you over the edge is how casual they are about it.
Just real chill.
Oh, you didn't do this 50,000th thing for me today? No, I was too busy trying to feed you.
What do you mean I can't have rainbow sprinkled colored pants tomorrow for ice cream day at 8 o'clock? Amazon don't work that fast.
Amazon doesn't work like that. We are not related to Jeff. He cannot get it to
No.
us that fast.
All I see is blessings on blessings, yeah. I see the blessings coming our way, our way, our way. Blessings on blessings, yeah.
All right, we're just jumping in. We're jumping in. We're jumping right in.
We're already friends.
Look, we're already friends. I cannot believe we haven't done this sooner.
My whole team and I were like, is this my first time doing something with Lizzy?
Girl,
Like,
that's so wild. I thought the same thing.
I was just like, it feels fake because I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like this is obviously not our first time. But you know what? You watch each other online so long. You watch people's families grow up. You know what I mean? I'm excited we're getting to do this.
I know. It's same. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, no, we've met. And then I was like, no, I don't. Wait a minute. Hold on.
You just start making up stuff. You're like, yeah.
Like, no, we've done this. No, maybe we haven't done this. But I don't know. I think maybe it's, you know what it is? It's also like you automatically, especially I think also because you're so authentic on social, you really are. I really do believe that this is exactly who you are. And when your husband be talking to you, when your kids are like, mommy, 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 when your sister is over, you know what I mean? Like I constantly believe like this is the Mattie you're going to get.
Same.
And so
same,
I think
because
it's just like,
you're the same way. You're the same way. Like I'm like literally when I found you on What's Up Moms, because that's how I discovered you.
Oh,
because I was like, oh my gosh, I was like a black mom. I was so excited. I was like, let me find her. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I'm OG Lizzy Mathis fan. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, I found you. Yeah. Especially, you know, like if it's like only one of us in the space, you're like, oh, cool. Let me follow her. Let me see and stuff like that. And I think I had only had 2 kids at the time when you were on What's Up Moms. And I was like, okay. I really was invested. And then I started following you. And then I started doing your own stuff with Cool Mom Co. I saw you doing stuff with Jess. And so I was like, oh, this is who Lizzy is. This is actually, this is her life. Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna lie. You're gonna get many different sides of me, but yes, this is all me, all of it.
I love
I
it.
kind of want to start. I want to start from the beginning with you. You know, in your text, I saw something which is crazy because I think we kind of have a commonality that I didn't even realize.
What's
you
that?
won Miss Liberia.
Yes.
USA, is this it?
Yes.
Okay, so wait a minute. Were you in like? Can you talk to me? Well, how, Sway? How?
So the way the USA, because they have a Miss Liberia pageant in Liberia. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's in alignment with the Miss Universe pageant. I think that's how they pick who that. But the USA pageant is an independent pageant, and you are allowed to be in the pageant if you are a Liberian, of course. You can be born in the US if both of your parents or one of your parents are Liberian. So both of my parents are Liberian. I'm first generation. Me and my sister are first generation. So I qualified for the pageant, and I won in 2009. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I always forget. It seems like many moons ago. So I'm always like, oh, yeah. Wait, so you're a beauty queen too?
Hold on. Wait a minute. You don't have to use the word beauty queen. Okay, back up. Why are you so strong with it? That's first and foremost.
You're like, whoa, that's really strong.
Calm down a little bit. Okay.
Dial it back.
Dial it back. Okay. No. So not beauty queen, but like I won Miss Michigan Teen USA when I was in high school.
That's beauty queen.
I know, but I know, but it didn't like it wasn't. You know, it was very random. And my mom, I remember constantly always asking my mom. I wanted to get into modeling, which happened to be exactly what I did. After college, I moved to New York, got into modeling. But I wanted to get into modeling so bad. My mom, we were in Detroit, and she was like, I don't know, someone told me about a pageant. They said you could become a model if you know. And so we entered it, and then one thing led to the next. But as I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's wild. And it feels like
so
ages
fun.
ago.
Oh my gosh. I love it. That's so cool.
It's so random. I think it's so random. Now seeing like, you know, just now in life, we're so like, I don't know, you know, things are there and then now you're here. It just feels very random.
And you're like, oh yeah, I did do that. I did do that.
Yeah. I did do that. But one of the things I love doing on the Cool Mom Code podcast is just kind of relating the dots, right? Like connecting the dots, because we don't all just show up and be a Mattie James. We're not just all waking up and we're like, and today I am going to teach you this, and I'm going to write you this, and I'm going to, it's like we don't all wake up doing that. So the one thing I really love to do is just inspire moms, especially, when you become a mother, the juggle becomes a little bit more real, you know what I mean? And like, it's a process. And I just love to inspire moms to say, hey, there's like the dots do connect. Like, there is an aspiration. You can get here. This is some things. If there's something you want to do or a pivot you want to make, it is possible. So where are you originally from, though? Are you originally from Atlanta?
Well, I pretty much grew up here. I'm kind of from everywhere. So I have immigrant parents. They're Liberian. My parents moved here. My dad got a scholarship to The Ohio State University. Wow. And so that was in 1980. He went through school and grad school and all of that. And my parents were actually living in Toronto when mommy was pregnant with me. And I think my dad had like a long assignment in Huntsville, Alabama. So I was born in Huntsville. So, but I mean, I have probably spent like this much of my life in Huntsville. Like probably the first 2 years of my life were in Huntsville, and then really spent in Toronto. And then funny enough, like we did all this traveling because my dad worked for an international engineering firm because he's a civil engineer. And 6 years later, we moved back to Huntsville where my sister was born in the same hospital by the same doctor. So it's just literally, it's just a wild story. I'm like, how did all of that happen in 6 years? And you guys decide to go back. And so I was born there, and just pretty much kind of like my early childhood really was spent in Huntsville for a couple of years and in Atlanta. I graduated high school in like the Pittsburgh area. I grew up in an area called Beaver, Pennsylvania. So I went to Beaver area high school. Yeah. And so, all
the Beavers right now are like,
they're holding it down. Shout out to anybody from Beaver. So which is about 33 miles outside of Pittsburgh. So, I did that. And then I went to college. I went to like a satellite campus of Penn State. And I did like another year at another private college called Robert Morris. And then I left because I was deeply convinced that I was going to become a pop star. I was deeply convinced that I was going to become a son. Yes. Like I was just so deeply like I auditioned for Making the Band. I auditioned for American Idol. I did all the reality shows you can think of, those two specifically.
Has singing always been like a passion of yours?
Always, since I was little. I just loved being on the stage. So I always did pageants. I started dancing when I was 4. I've been classically trained since I was 4. So stage was just a thing. I just knew I was going to be famous. Yeah, I just was so convinced. And my parents are definitely stage parents. So they definitely supported this personality type. Yeah. And so I moved to New York, and it was like pretty cliche, right? It was just like, I mean, I was super broke because I left school. My West African daddy was like, yeah, we no longer financially support you. But if you want to go be grown, go be grown. And that's exactly what I did. I took my $278 to New York. I stayed with some friends of theirs, and it was so generous of them to let me stay because they were also in a pretty humble situation. I pretty much left my parents like 3,000 square foot house, 5 bedrooms. I moved to the projects, to the Bronx. And things escalated.
New York. That's New York though. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, I had the same story. I lived in New York, 4 other girls in a very I won't say we had roommates that were not human.
Gotcha. Okay? Yeah, same.
You know what I'm saying? So, I understand that. That's a little bit, that's the New York come up though, right?
That is the New York come up. And I think, I personally think that I only spent a year in New York, but I absolutely think it shaped my my work ethic. Because that was really the first time I really lived in a safety net. Like my parents were super, ambitious. They were here from another country going after the American dream. We were usually the token Black family in all white situations. They really kept us in this bubble. And so New York was really the first time where I saw different types of people, not only people that looked like me, but just a really wide variety. So it was kind of like a little bit of a culture shock in a really good way. My my parents were very strict. So I like in high school, I never really had a boyfriend or anything like that. I got all of my dating out in New York City. I was like, I dated a white guy. I dated a Puerto Rican dude. I dated a black guy. You know, I just was like, you know what, let's explore. And so, but it was really good for me. I really did learn like how to work. Like in New York, no one feels sorry for you because everybody there got to work.
No, they don't.
So,
no, everyone's on their grind, their hustle. That's interesting because you spent so much time in the South. So that's interesting that you felt like, you know, you had were in a bubble until you moved to New York. That's fascinating to me because my husband's from the South and his is kind of like an opposite experience. Really? He always says that growing up in the South, but he's from Birmingham, Alabama.
Gotcha.
He like, you know, he went to school in Nashville, Tennessee, but he always felt like it wasn't until he got to college where he was really around other people.
Gotcha.
Like he in home, he just was like, you know, growing up, he was always around Black people, always around brown people. And that was kind of his bubble. And so it's interesting hearing the opposite of you.
Yeah, I think, you know, like I said, I think my dad really had this idea that if it was, you know, if it was white, it was right. So he was like, okay, the best schools, we've got to move to this neighborhood. And that's really how he kept us throughout. Even my sister, you know, who's 6 years younger than me, like they pretty much stayed the course even after I left. And so, yeah, it was really the first time. Like I remember moving to Atlanta as an adult because I did like second, third, and fourth grade here in Atlanta. And moving here and like going to Express in the mall and seeing all Black people work at Express. Cause where I grew up, it was like the white store. It was like I couldn't believe, I was like looking around. I was like, oh, this is like it was like a real culture shock. And my husband, who's from New Orleans, everything has always been Black to him all his life. He's like, yeah, what are you talking about? Yeah. He's like, why wouldn't that be the case?
This is normal, right? Oh, that's
super
interesting.
Normal.
Okay, wait a minute. So how did you and your husband meet? So past that, how did you guys even, because you guys have been together for a long time.
We have. We've been together, I think we've been together 14 years, married this month for 13. And we actually met on MySpace. And anytime we tell this story, people are like, you are kidding me.
What?
So when I left New York City, I moved back down to Atlanta because my maternal grandfather had fallen ill. So I wanted to spend like, you know, his last few months with him. And it was great. Right. I did get to spend time with family. And then it was probably about a year. Yeah, I would say it was about a year and some change. You know, I would like casually date people, but it was nothing serious. Right. I was working retail. I didn't have a car. It was in my young 20s, early 20s, didn't know what to do. And MySpace was still really a thing, and we met on MySpace. And my husband is somebody who doesn't half-ass anything. Like he used MySpace like as like a pen pal thing. Like he would follow up with you. He was really good. And the mall I worked at, like I think we were friends on MySpace probably for about 6 months before we met in person. And he was just so consistent and like normal. I was like, oh yeah, we can totally meet in person. Like you are not a weirdo by any means.
Right.
And
this is okay.
Yeah, and we met, and it was still like in a group setting, and he knew that I danced, and so he took me to Alvin Ailey when they came here in Atlanta. Yeah, because they're here at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, usually like every February, and so he took me in February, and then the next time it was like a game night, and we finally kissed or whatnot, and we started dating in March, and then like 6 months later he proposed, and then a year later we got married.
Wow. Okay. And then, so you're married, and then where do kids come in? Where was it after marriage? You're in your career at this point. Had you started your blog and all that stuff yet?
So when we got married, it was kind of a whirlwind in a sense where it's like a lot of life changes happened. Like I had a loss, an aunt that was really, really close to me. She had passed. I was working retail, but then I ended up landing a really amazing internship, and I interned for Brown-Forman, who's the makers of Jack Daniels. And so I ended up doing that. And then literally 6 weeks before it was not bad. It was not bad.
Okay.
And then 6 weeks before we got married, I won Miss Liberia. And then 6 weeks later, we get married. Okay. So it was just a lot that year. So I was really trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? So I did finally start my blog. I had been blogging like a hobby, like since I had moved from New York, but took it seriously after I won Miss Liberia. I started the blog. I thought I could just like start blogging and I would start making money. And the way we were just not making money at all. And so finally I got a real job in 2011 and I worked that for about almost 4 years before I left. And actually I was fired. And then because they just completely changed everything. So I was let go. But at that point I was making the same amount of money at my 9 to 5 as I was with blogging. So it worked out. So
Wow.
Yeah.
So you took it as an opportunity. You were like, this is it. This is the opportunity I'm going to.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had also like, I'm somebody like, I'm like, if I want something, I'll pray for it and go work for it. And I had kept on like saying these like prayers, like these very fearful prayers, like, okay, God, I'm like ready to quit. And I would just never quit. So I kind of feel like he just kind of allowed that to happen. Yeah. He was just like, well, I'm not going to stop it. He's like, I don't cause bad things, but I'll let that happen.
Yeah, so. Exactly. I'm going to push you in the right direction. Sometimes that's what we need though. You know, I will say that, you know, you get stuck in your whole routine and you get stuck in what you know and you get comfortable. I won't even say stuck. You get comfortable.
Absolutely.
And this is what you know. And you know, the unknown is sometimes the scariest place to be. However, the unknown is sometimes what you need to break that barrier to get to what you want.
That's so good because it's so true. Yeah, the unknown to me, because I feel like the unknown really forces you to get to know yourself. If there is a disconnect with yourself, you really have to know yourself to say, you know what, regardless of what this situation is about to be, I trust myself to do what is necessary to get on the other side.
It's so true. I mean, and through your experience online, I mean, I know that you've been doing it for so long. You really are. When you say OG in the beginning of this, you really are an OG. I mean, you have seen it change in so many ways.
Oh my gosh.
You've been able, you're like a Madonna. You're like, you've been able to like reinvent each time. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and just stay on top of like whatever it is that's being presented to you, whether it's a MySpace clearly, or whether it is like
when it just snatched me a little husband and
I mean, get it how you can. No shade, get it how you can. You know, or it's just like staying up to date with like what's happening in social media and all that stuff. So I guess my question for you is, where did the passion come from? Blogging, showing fashion, beauty, all these things that you do, style, all that, all your loves in life. Because I feel like you and I have a lot of similar passions to really helping people. You know what I mean? Like you help people on social.
Oh, I appreciate that, Lizzy. And that's absolutely why I gravitated towards you. Like I said, when I discovered you on YouTube, I was so excited because I was like, you know, I was like, she looks like me. So it's like, yes, you know, and especially early on when it came to the lifestyle content, I feel like a lot, it took a little bit to get, you know, us going. And now I feel like, I mean, I love to see women that look like us who are in all these different spaces. And so for me, I think I really just had like this dream that what we're in now would happen, right? Because it usually was just one, you know, one brown person, one black person in a situation, right? I got to do so many great things. And I think, I do know that I'm good at what I do, but I do think the timing of when I did it. And also I think not being in a New York and LA helped me because it was kind of like, oh, there's something else going on, you know, and in Atlanta was like, this is a music city. This is an entertainment city, right? Like, you know, so I think it like really the blogging that was happening here, like, you know, in 2010, 2011, 2012 was really entertainment blogging, right? Like people were blogging about the movies and music. When it came to that kind of stuff in Atlanta, no one was focused on lifestyle. And that was really interesting to me because I was like, people like clothes, people are moms, people are all these things. And so, so I was just like, you know what, I'm willing to be the first or the only, you know what I mean? And my hope was always that women that looked like me were given permission to go do the same thing or do whatever they wanted just because they didn't see other people doing it. That was always really important to me and still is. I really wanted my success to be permissive because when I see other people win, it gives me permission. It gets me excited. It doesn't mean I won't win. I've just always had that kind of personality. And so I've always had that mindset with my own success as well.
I just feel like, you know what, if it's almost, for me, it's inspiring. Because I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, okay, yes, like if she can do it, I can too. Like, let's do it. Like, what can we do to you know, it's almost like this idea of just like, you know what it is? It's like with children. And this is how it is with as a mother for me. It's like, I always want them to see themselves in every position. You know, I'm a big believer of that. So this is why Obama, right, was such an important figure. This is why when we see Oprah, when we see Venus and Serena, when we see these people who are excelling in what it is that they do, and they look like us, it gives you a different way to walk into the room, in my opinion, because you now know, you've been there. I know I can do it because I saw so-and-so.
I saw so-and-so. You know, it's so permissive. And I think even just like years of therapy has revealed to me that because in my really formative years, I was always the only or one of few at school or in extracurricular activities, I never really wanted anybody to feel alone because they wanted to go after something. You know what I mean? It would have been, and let me be clear, I had a great childhood. I don't have any complaints or anything like that, but it would have been really nice to have other people who looked like me to go through these very formative years. I think that definitely would have, been slightly different, and I think even really encouraging. And so that's why I get so excited when I see, anybody online, and, because being an internet professional is also kind of strange, right? Because we're coworkers, but we don't see each other in you know what I mean? So that's why we can hop on for the first time and be like, girl, I love this and da 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 da, because it's like we're coworkers. Like if you work on the internet and you follow each other, it's a really strange, interesting, but yet awesome dynamic. And so, so that's why I've always taken it to be really permissive as well. So that was always my hope.
I've never thought about it like that we're coworkers. That makes me laugh because I'm like, I guess we are. That's weird.
You know what I mean? In a really weird way. You're like, oh yeah. Well, because it's also, it's not a normal thing though, right? Like people, it's normal. Social media is normal to consume, but your average friend cannot relate to you creating content and putting it on the internet, right? So other people who do it that can relate, it's like, well, you're my coworker because if I tell you this thing, you will absolutely relate. Exactly.
You'll get it. This takes me, there's so many ways I want to go on everything that you just said. I mean, I want to tap into a couple of things. One of them being that you mentioned that Atlanta, you felt like being in that space, it kind of gave you a different edge or advantage than rather being in a New York or in LA. For moms out there, why so though? Like why in a smaller or in a different market outside of New York and LA, why did you feel like that was so helpful for you?
I thought it was so helpful because it definitely helped me stand out. And I really love the dynamic that is Atlanta. I deeply love it. Like my husband and I talk about this all the time. I was like, the only way I'm leaving is with boatloads of money because I have to move my entire village with me. I mean, our setup here is so great. So I love Atlanta because it's slow enough to raise your family in a great suburb, but it's fast enough to go to a movie premiere, to an album release party. There's a really nice dichotomy. You know what I mean?
Balance.
You get a much more bang for your buck in comparison to other metropolitan areas. And I love that, and there's something about the South that is really charming. The people are nicer here, I think. And I do think it has the ability to move slow, but still keep up with, big sister, big brother, New York and LA, as I like to say,
I'm secretly asking because, my husband's from the South. So, I'm secretly
just tell him
look, he wants to move back to the South. He would do it tomorrow. He would do it tomorrow if he could. Yes.
Do you want to stay in LA? Do you want to stay in LA?
not tied to LA, by any means. I'm originally from Detroit. So, I'm used to like the Midwest, like people, like I'm used to people using their hands for work. I'm used to like, those Midwest values. So being in LA is a little foreign for me too. I'm not gonna lie.
Gotcha.
But I always like to ask people because I'm like, okay, well, tell me. Maybe I'll
think
like
you
cross
guys
over.
would love Atlanta. I think it definitely would be like this. Really, obviously the Detroit is not the South, but I do think there is a nuance that Detroit has that Atlanta kind of has. I feel like it would be this beautiful balance between you and your husband's hometowns. You guys would be super close to his hometown. Birmingham is literally we have family in Alabaster, so we literally are in Birmingham. Yeah, my older brother and sister-in-law. But yeah, I really enjoy it, and like I said, it really is such a great family city. I love that I get to raise my kids here.
I could see that. I mean, 1000%. I think the South is something really special. And I think that, being able to, you capture it in a way on social too. And I think that that's great about it. Like you show that like, hey, this is where I am. This is something I'm proud of. This is where we are. And you do kind of capture it in your content. So I do like that. But speaking of content, okay, your husband works with you.
Yes. So he was in corporate for about, pretty much since he had graduated college. We kind of had like early in our career when we first got married, like we had like a little, I would say like 6-month stint where we neither one of us worked because we were like, yes, we can just make money on the internet. And we just did not have the resources and tools. So we went and got new real jobs in 2011.
Both
we were
of
like,
you.
you know what? Yeah, it was like, you know what? Being broke, not fun. Not especially when you first get married. So let's not do that. And it was in 2021, actually, a decade later, a year after the pandemic, we were like, you know what? I think it's time. And he actually left his corporate gig and came on as the COO. And I feel so fortunate that we were even in the position to make that kind of choice without it affecting our quality of life or anything like that. And it's been really great. So he's a graphic artist by trade. So even visually, just to have his eyes to make sure there's like a level of brand consistency when it comes to visuals is really, really great. He worked in corporate comms and just really understands communications when it comes to dealing with brands, which we do on a daily basis with our partnerships. And it's just been great. He's the only dude on the team. So it's also great to just have a little testosterone and be like, maybe we shouldn't do that, or maybe we should. I like that's the side where he's like, yeah, let's totally do that. We can pull it off. And we're always kind of looking at him like, are you sure? And he's like, let's do it.
I love that. Listen, I think in any relationship, because I personally believe relationships, at least how I carry my relationship, is it's us against the world in many respects, right? Like we are the glue that is going to go out there and make our dreams happen. We're going to be our biggest supporters to each other. And that's just what it is. And we've created this family with these little people running around and depending on us. So I feel like if you can make it work, I think it's fascinating and phenomenal. However, I also am married, and I also have a husband who we do a lot together, but it is not easy by no means.
It's not.
And so how do you create, I don't even want to say balance, but a structure in terms of like, okay, this is work. And now this is family. This is us. Like, where does that, like, how do you?
It's hard. It's just hard. It's just something that we've accepted that is just hard. I used to kind of beat myself up when like certain things wouldn't come naturally or like coming to a decision would be hard because I just assumed like, oh, well, the longer we do it, the easier it'll be. And it's like, no, it doesn't necessarily get easier. You just get better. It's still hard, but you know, you just have to show up in that sense. I think the one thing that we're really fortunate with is like, because we work from home, our entire basement is our workspace. So when we go upstairs, it's kind of like you leave work down here, right? Like, you know, sometimes we might, you know, film something in the kitchen. We might have to do a little something like in our bathroom or anything like that. But for the most part, if we can film it down here, we will, just to leave work down here, and upstairs we get to be mom and dad. We get to be Mattie and Chris. And so I think that has been really helpful within this last year for sure. And, and then really like couples therapy, like really, because it's like, I think the thing too is it's hard because it's like we're CEO, COO, we're mom and dad, and then we're Mattie and Chris. So it's like making sure that you honor each of those relationship dynamics without diluting another.
Right. And I think that is where the hard part comes in for me. The hard part is separating. I love that tip because that's a major tip right there. The space defines who you are in that moment. When you're in the basement, you are COO, you are CEO. Let's talk to each other appropriately. Let's figure it out. We're in business mode. When we are upstairs, this is where we are mom and dad. We are, Mattie, Chris. I like that. Keep it separate.
Well, I talk about this in my book. So in my book, Everyday Magic, I talk about your boundary wars, right? So I love an analogy or an acronym rather, because it always helps me remember stuff. Like to me, your boundary wars are your work/life boundary, your access boundary, your relationship boundary, and your space boundary. And so basically I kind of touched on those, like really like the kids could come down here if they needed to, but they pretty much know that this is off limits. I just feel like they have free range, like
they got everywhere else.
The house. That's right. Please don't come downstairs near mommy's MacBook or daddy's iMac, for the love of God, please. So, that's a space boundary, right? And I think too, especially for so many of us who started working from home during the pandemic and stuff like that, if you have to work from home, even if you don't have a designated office, if you have a desk, go ahead and put a boundary on that to the rest of your family. Hey, this is where mom works. Please do not touch or mess with anything on that desk because it's really important for me to stay organized. And I think sometimes we think it's silly, but it's really not. Like this being like a sacred space for work allows us to keep everything else in our lives pretty much in order. And so, so the space boundary is huge. Yeah. And also that relationship boundary too, because I'm like, when I want Chris to be my husband, I'm not interested in talking to the COO of the company. Really not. Correct. Like when we're out on date night, we will get to that on Monday. And I will respond back to that email respectfully. Right now, I want to order dessert.
That's right. Like enjoy this moment right here. So, okay, with date night. So how often do you guys make it a priority to be Mattie and Chris, to really dive into your relationship and leave parent as well as work, because you're so closely tied to it at home?
Usually at least once a week. So date night, we're really fortunate. My parents live 7 minutes away. His parents live 20 minutes away. So we're really fortunate to have two sets of grandparents literally within driving distance.
I'm so happy for you. I am so happy for you.
I always tell people this is the life hack of all life hacks. If you have any kind of extra income to get your parent to live near you, do it. So typically they'll go to my parents on Friday nights after school, usually around 5 or 5:30. They call it Grandpa Fridays because they go hang out with my dad and my mom, and then we'll go out. And sometimes it's fancy, so sometimes we'll go to the High Museum, which is the art museum here in Atlanta, or we'll just go to we'll just go grab some tacos and come back and watch a Marvel movie. But it's just about that time being exclusively for us,
Yes.
And I
you
love
have a standing date.
We have a standing date. I like it because even if we miss one out of the month, we're still getting it in at least 3 times out of the month. I know one night, like some nights we'll schedule outings with friends. So I think like 3 or 4 weeks ago, he went out with like his like childhood best friend, like 2 of his childhood close friends. And we didn't end up going out, but I was like, it's fine because I was with you 3 times, uninterrupted this month. And so I really love that time for us. I think it's super great. And I'm just understanding how important it is for us to just be married people, right? Not mom and dad, not business partners, but just Mattie and Chris. And that really means so much to me. So we have a standing date, and we'll tweak it accordingly, right? The kids are getting older, they're doing their extracurricular activities. So we'll tweak it as needed. But the standing date has been great for us.
It's everything. I love that. I think that if you can commit to it and stay consistent with it, I think that's one of the biggest hacks in a relationship. Communication and making the time. I think if you can do those 2 things, then you're golden. It's just hard to do sometimes.
I think it's 3. I think it's like communication, spend time together, just have sex. keep having sex. I cannot stress this enough. Like, it solves so many problems that you're like, I'm not even mad about that anymore.
I know for us in our relationship, that closeness, you don't realize that it's like this intimate, you don't realize that you're lacking the intimacy until you guys are close again. You're like, oh, that's why I like you. Okay, now I get it. Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I get it. So I think it's those three things, right? It's like, yes, go out on dates, communicate, and please have sex, please.
Intimacy, it's have sex, intimacy.
I'm just saying.
It is. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a part that people don't talk about, but I think you're absolutely right. I think those and I want us to. Clear.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I get it. Like you don't have to go into detail or anything like that, but I think that we have to.
So I like it like this.
We like actually talked to it. Right. So we actually did this the other night, but I feel like what happens is, and he made such a good point. He's like, isn't one of the perks of being married like this person that you get to enjoy sex with, like specifically? And I was like, that's such a good point, but you get so caught up in the schedules and the kids and the work and this and that, but you don't want to miss out on literally one of the gifts that marriage gives you. And it's like getting to enjoy sex with this person you love.
No, but I get it. And the way we talking about it, it sounds amazing too, right? Where we're like, yes, don't you get to have sex? Yes.
Yeah, but girl, you be tired. I get it.
Girl,
I'm exhausted. So I'm exhausted. I'm also almost 40, so I need to stretch. I don't know if I hydrated enough. So all of these things, I get it. But
I went to play tennis the other day and got a bum knee. I'm like, girl, I mean, it is wild to me. I get tired. I'm like, okay, so you tell me to make a choice between sex and sleep. Ooh, I gotta wake up pretty early tomorrow. So
because the way I swan dive in my bed at 10 p.m. and I'm so under those covers, and so I just so I'm like, if you can get it in before 10, that'd be great. So I absolutely get it, but I do try to. I try to be thoughtful and considerate and stuff like that, because I also know where I'm like, okay, would I rather be a little bit tired and seeing eye to eye with my husband, or would I rather be well rested but then like being wiped out by this argument we're having yet again?
Interesting.
So you just would I rather either way you're gonna pay. So it's like, are you gonna pay so you just gotta figure out. Either way it's hard. You just gotta pick your hard. I like hard with peace. I like hard with peace.
Wow. You like to lose a little bit of sleep so you can have a peaceful day.
For peace, child, because I be drinking my coffee. I'm not arguing with nobody. Because I sacrificed, child, that time necessary to get it in and keep it peaceful.
That's right. I love that. That's probably the best marriage hack right there. You have a choice.
I'm telling you, if you want to solve a problem in your marriage fast, get Meg the Stallion knees going. Stretch it out. Get the Bengay. Girl, can make sure you're hydrated. Get your Gatorade. Whatever you need. Stretch it out. I promise you. Like you won't even remember what y'all was arguing about. I promise you.
Is this part of the tips that you learn in couples therapy? Or is this just a Mattie hack?
It is. And I love my therapist for that, because she was just like, yo, I don't know, it would behoove you to just have a little bit more sex. Because I was the one who was very much so, like out of my love languages, physical touch is just not important to me. I'm like, give me compliments and gifts. And so physical touch is important to my husband, and not even just in the sense of sex. He just wants, he just like, even just like a encouraging touch. And I had to understand that, because I automatically associated physical touch with sex. And so just learning what matters to him, right? Like, hey, babe, how you doing? A rub on the shoulder, touching him on the knee. Like, and I even had to learn that about myself, where it's like, well, what physical touches actually matter to me? What is actually meaningful to me? And so just actually learning those things. And that's why it's so important to always keep learning yourself, always keep learning your partner. That's why therapy has been huge, both individually and couples therapy has been huge.
That's interesting. I think I'm very much like you, though. I'm like, I don't necessarily need to be touched all the time. I'm not like, it's just that my brain doesn't function that way. However, my husband, he definitely needs like that, he does. That's so interesting. I never thought about it like that. That's crazy. That's crazy. But I think you're right, though. I think you're right. I think it is, you sacrifice one or the other to get what you need. Do you feel like that has changed, or your relationship or intimacy changed when you had kids? Did you feel like it changed when you guys were just
Absolutely, just because you're even more tired. Like, I'm specifically tired because of these three people.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And so and then also too, where it's like, when we do have those moments alone, or we often travel to get a lot together for work in addition to leisure. And so when we do have the just the time away where it's us, it's like, man, you know what? This is nice. I really enjoyed you on this trip. This was cool that we got to experience this together. And so I also think there's like a bond, at least that has happened for us in our friendship, because it's like, I know how hard it is to raise these three specific children, right? Like, it's hard for all of us, but these three specific children are very intense in their own unique way. And only you know that, as the other parent. And so, I definitely think, our bond, our intimacy definitely changed, you know what I mean? Because I think oftentimes too, how you feel about something, right? Because even now, even though physical touch still isn't the top thing to me, physical touch means a lot more to me, because sometimes all three of the kids just want their dad. And it's like, I just would like to hug my husband. So now I'm kind of dealing with this dynamic of where now I'm jealous because three people are, you see what I mean? So and it's just a natural human thing to be jealous. It's not their children. They obviously they're not doing anything malicious to me, but it's like, oh, wow, I didn't really get to see you or talk to you today because you were with them the whole time.
And that's where the communication comes in, right? Yep. That's where being able to communicate constantly with your partner and like all that. So, all right. So I want to shift now because I want to talk about this book.
Yes.
Talk to me about, I know we've touched on it a little bit, but Everyday Magic, you have been working on this. I remember reading the post where you were like, I have scheduled out my content for the next how many months, and I am going to go and write my book. So just so you guys know, I'm being transparent that this content has been scheduled out and it is on automatic, and I'm going to go write my book. And you took the time for yourself because you wanted to do it. You knew that it was going to be amazing as it is. And you were like, I'm going to take this time for myself to go make this dream happen.
Yeah.
How does that work? Chris supports you in it. And you just go off and do it? Is that it? Is it that easy?
It's that easy, and it's not. I mean, I'm married to the greatest person on earth. So let's start with that. So that's the first hack. And then that's the first hack. And then, it happened all pretty fast. I ended up signing my publishing deal in August of 2021. And I had to turn in my first draft October 1st. So if you do the math, it was approximately 10 weeks I had to write the book. So I was like, and then the book came out, August 23rd of 2022. Wow. So it was a year to write it, go through the drafts, print it out, promote it. So it was on the fast track for sure. And this was the first book I had ever written. We also had the expectation that our basement would be done. So I would have a designated space to write it. The basement was not done until January of 2022. So we had to go rent out a co-working space while still paying for the basement to be done in private school and get all of that done. But you know what? We made it work because we had to. Right. We're so, we're so fortunate to be in this. What a great problem to have, to go rent out a space to go write a book. So I certainly am not complaining. But it was definitely intense. Writing a book was like a lifelong dream of mine. And I just adamantly just did not want it to suck. So I really tried my hardest.
That's all of our goals in life.
I just don't want it to suck. I just don't want it to suck. And so I really tried my hardest to write. It was so important to me to write a book that matters and encourages. I think that was the biggest thing. I was like, when women read this, and when anybody reads it, right? Because I think the one encouraging thing Chris just said, because he just got done listening to it on Audible, he was like, Everyday Magic is for everyone. That's the really cool thing. He's like, you wrote it from the perspective of, being a woman, a wife, a mom, but he's like, everyone can have everyday magic. So for anybody who has not heard of me or follows me on Instagram, Everyday Magic is an acronym. It stands for making everyday meaningful, aesthetically pleasing, goal-oriented, intentional, and consistent. And I think what I love about it is it's an antidote to not make every day perfect, because I think a lot of times that's what we try to do, and we just end up failing miserably. It just crash and burns
it's so
immediately.
True. It's so true.
But if you can make it meaningful, if you can make it aesthetically pleasing, and all these things, the reason why everyday magic to me is so deeply meaningful is because only you can name your magic. I can't name it for you. So this isn't a book where I'm like, do this and this will happen. That's not it at all. I in the book pretty much explain to you what's meaningful to me, what's aesthetically pleasing to me, what helps me as a wife and mom. Because I think my main thing now in this season of my career and my business is that I really want to help women eliminate the overwhelm of every day. Every day can just feel so much. I think the thing that's different for us in comparison to our moms, our grandmothers, our aunties, our older cousins or whatnot, is that we have so many distractions. It is unprecedented, not to use that word, but it is unprecedented how many distractions we have. And that's where the overwhelm comes from, because you're so busy trying to remember stuff. And, and it's literally combating with what you saw on the news, what you saw on Twitter, who got canceled on social media today, the new album that came. There's so much information, and we're not being fair to ourselves. It's like, you don't get credit for remembering things. You get credit for getting them done. So let's write them down. Let's close the tabs in our head. And then I think the other thing too is that you are not obligated to live a life that someone thought you should be living. Like you're just not. And even if you are not doing what your mom thought you were going to do, doing what this person thought you were going to do or anything like that, you lack nothing. There's nothing about you is lacking. You are not an accident. You are more than complete. And before we get into the everyday stuff, right? Like, how to batch household tasks or even how to hire it out and outsources, we really talk about what I call the deep work stuff, like really understanding that you are more than enough. The subtitle of the book is The Joy of Not Being Everything and Still Being More Than Enough. Because I think the issue is that we have so many distractions. There's so many bells and whistles. There's email, there's social media, there's TV, there's streaming. Is that we think that we need to do all these things because each of us has experienced a level of trauma, be it big or small, that made us believe that we are not enough, that we are not like everyone else. Like everyone else is okay, but I'm not. So I need to try to do a little more just to overcompensate to make up for that deficit. And you have no deficit.
Yeah. You don't have a deficit. You ever heard of this concept of contracts? Like when you're younger, you're given contracts or you're signing contracts when you're younger. And basically the idea of it is that, like you just said, through your family, through, people who you've encountered in life, whatever it is, who put what they think you should be into your contract and you've believed it. So you've signed that contract believing I should be this and I should be doing this, or I do this, or I am this, or I am not this, or whatever it is that what you lack or whatever the position you thought you should be in. It's contracts that you sign when you're younger. And the idea of it is dispelling those contracts, writing new contracts for yourself to say, no, this is what I want to be. This is who I am, and that. So it's basically that theory. And I love that because you're giving people permission and the power, right? Because sometimes we just need to be reminded that we have the power. You're giving people that power to say, no, this is what you like, find that deep stuff. Give yourself the power. Now let's move forward.
1000%. Man, I've never heard the contracts concept, but it is absolutely accurate because we have been, a lot of times we tell ourselves these lies, or we let somebody tell ourselves a lie because we're like, oh, well, I really love and value this person's opinion. Yeah. But just because they think you should be doing something doesn't mean it's a truth, doesn't mean that it's necessary. And I think that I wanted so much to write a permission slip, pretty much. I wanted to write a really detailed permission slip for you. And not that you even need my permission or anyone's permission, but it's just a nice to have as a reminder to be like,
you need your permission.
You need your permission.
Your permission.
You have permission to give yourself permission to go flourish.
That's right. That's right. I'm gonna give you the blueprint. This your permission slip to yourself.
This is your permission slip to yourself. Yeah. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's a reminder to sign your own permission slip and get rid of these contracts, right? Because you don't even need a contract. You just need your own permission slip. And really, that's really what, because I want people to enjoy their everyday life. Like we deserve it. I think about all types of people, but I think about millennials especially. We have been through a lot. Like I think I was 16, 17 when 9/11 happened. You know, then there was the recession. Then there was this past administration. There's so much.
I wasn't 16, 17 when 9/11 happened, but I hear what you're saying. Okay. Like I get it. I was out of high school, but I understand what you're saying.
I was a senior, to be fair. Let me make sure I age myself. I was a senior.
Listen,
I was a senior.
Look, I'm just letting you know. But I love that. I love that concept though. And I love that idea of really putting it down in book form where people can really like take it in. And sometimes I find that even reading in book form feels so much more, I don't know. I feel like it hits me in a different way than if I'm reading it through social or like if someone's telling me in a YouTube video or whatever. I think there's something about like consuming those pages. Yeah,
and even what I'm getting from a lot of people who even got it on Audible is a lot of them are buying the physical book because they're like, there's so many things I want to highlight and reference to later because, you know, I had the lovely ladies from the Home Edit wrote an endorsement for the book. And the one thing that just really stood out to me is they were like, this is the kind of book you come back to 2, 3, 4 times. Like, this is not just a one and done book. And that was really what it is. My sister kind of calls it, she's like, it's like this, you know, she's like, it's like this wholesome millennial guide to like every day, right?
That's what it is.
Like, yeah, because it's like you look at stuff like, you know, maybe I talk about this all the time where I'm like, you know, I think people like Martha Stewart and like these other people were really cool, like lifestyle gurus, you know, when our, you know, when our moms were coming up. But it's like, who's giving us like tips on stuff now? You know what I mean? That isn't just like quick, like you said, right? Like the short form video is great, but when I need something to reference back to, I'm not interested in scrolling through somebody's timeline. I need a book.
Right. It's a resource.
It's a resource.
It's a resource. And if you can write a book as a resource for people to come back to and use as a guide, as they journal through their life, right, then I think that's amazing. And so for that,
Lizzy.
Kudos, Mattie James.
Thank you so much. So yeah, we're super excited. You can go get it now. It's everywhere that books are available. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. But yeah, we've been really excited about the response to the book because like the messaging that I'm getting from women when they like email me, DM me, they're like, I feel so seen, you know, like they're like, I used to think that doing these things meant I was too extra. Like I really wanted to make sure that people that are our age and our generation really knew that like if your family matters to you, if your home life matters to you, you're allowed to make a big deal out of that.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
You're not frivolous because of that. And so that's been a lot of the feedback we've been getting from the book, and we're excited about it.
I love that. No, I love that. I love that idea. If your home life matters to you, you're allowed to make a big deal of that.
Absolutely.
You're allowed to make a big deal of whatever matters to you.
Whatever matters to you, man. That's really what it's about. And in the book I iterate and I reiterate it throughout the chapters is that oftentimes I'll have people who are like, oh my gosh, you do everything. And it's like, no, that's the magic, right? You think I'm doing everything, but I'm only doing everything that matters. And that's why it seems so big. Right? When you're doing everything that matters, it'll seem really big to people. And it's like, but you're not doing what, you know, Diana over here is supposed to be doing. You're not doing what Kelly's doing and stuff like that because you're so focused on what you have to do. And so I had to get out of that because I felt so many times where I would see somebody doing something like, oh, I could do that too. Running a marathon is an amazing goal to have. Only if it matters to you.
Can't do it.
And it doesn't matter to you. It don't have nothing to do with you.
Okay, but this is my thing, Mattie. Okay, so that's a good point though, because I was about to let you go, but now you got my brain thinking. So now I'm gonna keep you for a couple more minutes. Because my thing is this though: how do you You know, I could talk to you for 2 hours. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. Okay, how could you? How do you keep that focus sometimes though? Because as a mother of three, a wife, you know, a friend, a sister, you know, plus your career, you know what I mean? Like you're building such an empire, right? How are you keeping? How do you keep it focused and find the time for everything? Now, one, I will say this, and I always, if I ask an iteration of this question, I always say, this is not a question I feel like they ask men enough. They don't ask men these questions.
They don't.
They don't ask men how they find the time.
Right,
you know?
right.
But because we're moms and we do know that we take on, not necessarily, but we take on, you know, I know when I think of my kids, I'm like, I got that. That's my baby. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or, you know, because we have our own businesses, it lands on your shoulders at the end of the day, because your name, Mattie James, is on the .com. You know what I'm saying? So I ask that to say, for other women and mothers who are listening, how are you finding what is important now and what's not important? Focus on this now, not on this.
The first thing we take you through in the book is pretty much how to create your own manifesto. And I think what changed my life forever is creating my own personal mission statement. Because what happened is that every other mission statement in my life, including our family mission statement, my company mission statement, became an iteration of that. And what I love too is that the mission statement is like really short and to the point, but your manifesto is pretty much like your own personal document saying like, this is what matters to me. This is what I'm working towards or whatnot. And the manifesto is massive because it will change with you, because it's supposed to, because you are an ever-changing person. And but the manifesto is just a beautiful reminder, right? Like we don't really have, like, what is the thing as a person, right, that is the equivalent to a business plan? And that's what this manifesto is, right? When you go start a business, what do they tell you? Go make a business plan, you know, then you present it to people who want to invest in your business, right?
Right.
When you want to invest in yourself, what's the thing that you have? Right? You don't have a document. And so if you would do this for a business, and to me, your life is more important than your business, it would behoove you even just to have a note in your notes app. That is what we call your manifesto. So it's literally the Mattie manifesto, the Lizzy manifesto. That's what we walk through in chapter 1. And the chapter 1 is the magic of discovering why. When you understand why your life matters to you because of what you decide is what matters, everything changes, right? Like things that matter is not necessarily because Chris said this or because my mom said this or because the internet said this. If I say this matters to me, I move in a different way. I move with a level of confidence that only clarity can bring. And that's why it's important to have, and that's why it's so important to have that manifesto. Again, it doesn't have to be this long drawn out document. It literally can be like 5 bullet points, but as long as it's there, it's something that I revisit on a daily basis. I just glimpse at it. I don't have to recite it. It doesn't have to be anything deep. It's just deliberate. And I say that throughout the book. It's not deep. It's just deliberate. So we first start there before we get, because it doesn't matter what I tell you. I can say, oh, girl, just go outsource your laundry. Go and do this. You could do it like this. This is how you take your family photos. I can tell you all of that. But if you don't know what it matters to you, and the reason why that was important too is because even in the intro of the book, I say, take what you need, leave what you don't. So also when you know what matters to you, you know not to, one, even get offended by what I'm saying about this part if it doesn't matter to you, because it doesn't matter to you. So you're moving along. And so I think that was huge. And I think that is why even people who might not see eye to eye, people who don't have the same faith as me or anything like that can relate to the book because it's really, really permissive. This is about you and what you want in your life. And this is how you do the work to go to get it.
I love that. I love that. Have intention. And if it doesn't matter to you, then keep on moving.
Keep on moving. Yeah, keep on moving. It's not even worth getting upset about or anything. But a lot of times people get upset about stuff because they don't know that it doesn't matter to them. They just know that it's important, right? And in the book, I say everything that is a priority is important, but not everything that's important is a priority. And so once we get a clarity on that, then it's less like, oh, well, I can say no to that because it's not a priority in this current season of my life. It's not on the manifesto. It's not part of my personal mission statement. It's not in our family mission statement. Like I said, to me, I'm like, if it comes to being creative, creating joy within our community, be it online, in person, church, our extended family, that is part of our family mission statement. So we're going to do it as a family. If it's not creating joy, it ain't got nothing to do with us.
That's right. Ain't that the truth? It's not in this arena. It is not in this arena.
It's like, that don't have joy. That's not for me.
Not for me. Not for me. Mattie, I could talk to you all day.
Me too, ma'am. I'm so excited.
I mean, I can't wait till this happens in person. I cannot
wait. I will be in LA sooner than later. So we have to get together next time I'm there.
If I see you on your stories and you're in LA and you have not hit me up, then we have a beef. Just so you know, we have a problem.
I just want to make that clear.
I just want to make that clear. All right, guys, this is Mattie James. Make sure you check out her book. I mean, I'm just so proud of you because I feel like we were able to walk through this process with you. So, you know, now that it is like all culminated and it's beautiful and the cover, you know, is great on the outside and the inside.
And the inside. Both covers are good. So when you get the hardcover, guys, look at both covers.
That's right. Because some people like to just keep the hardcover. On their shelf. I know sometimes I like to just color coordinate with hardcover. So I love that
too. Yes.
It's the attention to detail. So make sure you follow her over at Mattie James and check her out. I love you. I thank you for being on here. I really do, Mattie.